Joining me is Alex Ryvchin of the Executive Council for Australian Jewry. Alex, we've been here before, I know this, but there's something special, I think, this time. The media reporting, describe it to me.
Well, at best, the media indulges in false equivalences, basically likening a democratic state taking appropriate measures to defend its citizens with a terrorist organisation, an avowed, known, listed, prescribed terrorist organisation, doing whatever it can to murder as many Jewish civilians as it possibly can, and succeeding in the process, killing both Jewish and Arab Israelis. So at best, the media plays into this narrative of equivalences between the two, without actually looking at who is the cause of this conflict, the fact that it is the Palestinian rejection of the very right of the Jewish people to a national home that is the cause and origin of this ancient conflict. And at worst, they play directly into the hands of Hamas by depicting Israel as being uniformly evil, bloodthirsty, driven by greed, reveling in the blood of children and women and the innocents and so forth, which effectively hands a huge prestige and propaganda victory to Hamas, giving it every incentive, every inclination to prolong this conflict further.
Now, Alex, journalists have no excuse. You mentioned about how they frame this, the original causes and all that. Well, right now, the meme is that this all started because wicked Israel was evicting Palestinians willy-nilly out of East Jerusalem, which is Palestinian, and this is terrible. It's actually a property dispute involving 4 families that refuse to pay rent to Jewish landlords, and it's going through the courts, so no decision's been made yet. But the fact is, on tape, you can see the deputy leader of Hamas, Memory has put it out, that MEMRI has put it out. You can see the deputy leader of Hamas promising last month that this trouble was coming, and Iran was backing it. And Hamas wanted no compromise at all. It wanted Israel gone. Is that really what the dispute at its heart is, between Hamas, that wants Israel destroyed, and Israelis who don't want to be destroyed?
Well, that's exactly what it's about. That's what it's always been about. And that's why peace processes have collapsed time and time again. That's why even before the creation of the State of Israel, when there were efforts to broker a 2-state solution and create 2 states for 2 peoples, they were rejected out of hand by the Palestinian side. It comes down to a fundamental rejection by the Palestinian Arabs of the right of the Jewish people to a national home in their ancestral homeland. And until they come to terms with the reality that the Jews are home in their own land and not going anywhere, this conflict unfortunately will endure. And we see sparks from time to time. You mentioned Sheikh Jarrah. There's a legitimate issue there with 6 Palestinian families, 4, 6, some say 8, tenants at will, who haven't paid their rent. And there's a legal dispute about who is the lawful owner of that land, whether it's the Palestinians who are in residence or Jewish owners who are ethnically cleansed by the Jordanians from the area in 1948. It's a legitimate issue. People have grievances on both sides. It's going to go to the Supreme Court and it will be settled there. But to think that a property dispute in East Jerusalem has some bearing, some connection to the firing of 3,000 rockets on Israeli civilians, to think that Hamas factors this into their calculations is absurd. And too often, the media doesn't question these things. They accept this narrative without question and without any scrutiny whatsoever. But we've also heard the myth that Israeli troops stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Again, this is an old conspiracy theory going back to Haj Amin al-Husseini, the Nazi collaborator. The Palestinian leadership have used this over and over again to incite violence against Jews, circulating false photographs showing the Al-Aqsa Mosque in flames, doing whatever they can in their sermons and in their publications to incite their people to violence against the Jews on the basis of this false claim. And once again, it's one thing for the Palestinians to advance this amongst their own people for their own political purposes. It's quite another for the Western media to accept this, advance this, and regurgitate this and play into the hands of these extremists.
Alex Ryvchin, I'm sorry though, I suspect there is a streak of anti-Semitism that might explain this, reverting to age-old sort of stereotypes and hatreds and all that kind of thing, because it's sick and it's sinister. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.